Alright, last video I forgot to actually go over the question that was the kind of the point of the video. So we're going to number 14. One reason President Truman did not authorize the bombing of Manchuria, which is a region in China, during the Korean War is because he feared that blank, okay? He feared B, that the Soviet Union would respond with a nuclear attack. If we bomb China, which is part of the Warsaw Pact, it's part of the allies for the communists, then we feared that the Soviets would bomb us back and we might start World War III. In the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, we might start a nuclear holocaust and everybody on the planet would be dead. So, moving on from that and continuing with the Cold War, we're talking about a new president now, okay? President Truman goes out of office. He only had one term in office, okay, that he was elected for. The other one was because, you know, he got elected because, he got to be president because FDR died, okay? But that's 2 terms, that's enough. His popularity was really bad because of the Korean War. He decided not to run for a 3rd term, even though the Constitution said he could at that moment, okay? So, Eisenhower is our new president, okay? Eisenhower was elected in 1952. He is the Supreme Allied Commander of our forces in Europe during the war, and that's where he got popular. So, in 1957, the Soviets really, really scared us when they launched the first ever man-made satellite. Okay, it's called Sputnik, and it looks like this. Anyway, so Sputnik, all it was a shiny ball with a radio inside that could receive and broadcast signals. But the Soviets hyped it up as if it was this ultra high-tech spy camera, basically, spy satellite. It was nothing of the sort. They actually made the outside of polished aluminum, and they polished it really brightly, very, very brightly. That way, whenever it passed over the night sky and it glinted in the sun, you could actually see Sputnik from Earth. They wanted everyone to see this because they knew the Americans couldn't shoot it down, and it was a symbol of Russian superiority of technology over us. A lot of people got really scared about that. They thought that, you know, this ultra spy camera could actually see images on Earth, okay? It was nothing of the sort. It was very low tech. So, anyway, the first satellite into space is Sputnik, and thus starts a massive arms race between the US and the Soviets. This arms race was often hidden in what was known as the space race. See, the idea is this: you cannot separate the arms race from the space race in the Cold War. Because if we can launch a satellite into space, well, what else can we launch? Well, we got really good rockets now, and we can launch missiles, and they have guidance systems where you can actually hit a target without having to drop a bomb. You would just simply send the missile up, and it would find its target. That was a huge leap forward. It's a far cry from the kamikazes that had to guide their missiles in by, you know, by person. So that was a pretty big advance. The ability to launch into space also provides the ability to launch ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and thus nuclear weapons. So the Russians, after Sputnik, they used the technology from Sputnik to create intercontinental, which means between continents, ballistic, which means the part that blows up, missiles. Actually, ballistic means the projectile that's sent out. Excuse me. So, the Soviets developed the ICBM first. Missiles that can launch across oceans and find their targets. And they didn't really tell us how accurate they were. Now, if they were, say, in the early days aiming for New York City, they might hit Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay? But it's close enough to get America pretty hyped up and scared, and for us to realize that we're behind in this space race, which is the arms race as well. This forever ends the idea of isolationism as a foreign policy for America. No longer will our oceans protect us. They don't have to come and invade. All they have to do now is launch missiles across the ocean. So we will never be isolationists again after this ICBM is created. All right, because of this, because we felt we were really far behind, President Eisenhower launches something called the National Defense Education Act, which was passed by Congress to pour federal money into education to close the perceived technology gap with the Soviets. We needed mathematicians, we needed scientists, so they poured billions of dollars into math and science in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools and colleges, in order to catch up with the Russians. At this moment, this is when history class took a back seat, and it's never come back since. We concentrate a lot on English, math, and science. And history is kind of the red-headed stepchild of education now, whereas it used to be the most important subject for a long time. So, the US and the Soviets discussed the idea of coexistence and the elimination of nuclear weapons. So they're talking about a program where we could kind of calm this thing down, okay? So the idea was pretty simple, okay? The President of the United States, Eisenhower, is going to talk to Nikita Khrushchev, the President of Russia. And the idea is, well, I destroy a nuke, you destroy a nuke. I destroy one, you destroy one. Now, how do we know that they're actually destroying their nukes while we're destroying our nukes? That's the question. Well, the Russians didn't trust us, and they wanted verification. Well, Eisenhower said verification would kind of look like this, okay? We would send a bunch of scientists over to watch them dismantle their nuclear facilities, and they would do the same to watch us dismantle our nuclear bombs. Well, Nikita Khrushchev said, well, I don't really like that idea, because what I really think is happening is I think you're trying to figure out where our nuclear facilities are so that way you can nuke them. And as they are negotiating back and forth, the worst thing possible happens. A spy plane falls out of the Soviet Union skies and into the Soviet Union. A U-2 spy plane. So, this is the U-2, and it was actually manned by a CIA agent, not a member of the Air Force. They were flying over the Soviet Union, taking high-definition pictures. And remember, this is a time when Nikita Khrushchev does not trust us. We're talking about nuclear disarmament, and then all of a sudden, our spy plane goes down over their country. So at that point, all the nuclear disarmament talks ceased, and we put up our shields, they put up their shields, and nothing else got done. Now, his name was Francis Gary Powers. He spent almost a year, I think, in the Soviet Union, and they captured him, and they captured the plane as well, even though it was badly damaged. And we eventually traded him back to America for a couple of communist spies. So that's how that one went. But whenever this plane got shot down, the special thing about it was the Russians lied about how it got shot down. They said that they shot it down with a surface-to-air missile. So basically, a missile shot from the ground to the sky, and this thing is flying at 80,000 feet. That's a heck of a shot. If this is true, that means that the Soviet technology for anti-air missiles and stuff like that is far beyond anything that we have. So they put that lie out there. Now, in reality, what happened was a Russian fighter plane flew up into the sky as high as it could go, and now its engines would cut out because of a lack of oxygen at about 60,000 feet. So this guy's going up and up and up towards this U-2 spy plane, and at 60,000 feet the engines cut out, and he keeps going on upward because of the momentum. And right whenever his plane reaches a point where it stops, he was perfectly lined up with the U-2 spy plane, and he shot all of his missiles, and they exploded close to the spy plane and brought it down. It was a 1 in a million shot, but it allowed the Russians to use this incident as propaganda to show us that they are superior to them. Yeah, I said that right. Okay, so that's Francis Gary Powers. Now we got three things so far, right? The Soviets have, basically, they have Sputnik, they develop an ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, and we believe that they have the capability to shoot down a plane that's flying 80,000 feet in the air at several hundred miles an hour. Any duck hunter would know that that would be a really horrible shot. Anyway, so moving on, these are surface-to-air missiles. This is what it looked like, what they claimed that they shot down Francis Gary Powers with. Okay. The Secretary of State for the United States is John Foster Dulles, and he actually develops a new concept for our foreign policy called brinkmanship. Brinkmanship is basically bluffing, okay? You have to be willing to go to the absolute edge of nuclear war. And you would have to convince the other guy that you're crazy enough to actually push the trigger. But you can't be that crazy. Because if you actually do launch nukes, then they will launch nukes at us, and the entire world will be a smoking ball of flaming ash. Okay, we'll end the entire planet in a nuclear holocaust. So, along with brinkmanship comes the idea of MAD, mutually assured destruction. You launch missiles at us, we launch missiles at you, everybody dies. And this is what prevents anybody from launching any missiles at anyone. So, let's see. What else do we have? Okay, one more thing that we developed around this time is the idea of massive retaliation to deter the Russians. We told them and everybody in the world that if you send one nuke, we're going to send 1,000. So the whole show is over. It's not going to be a one-on-one exchange. We will annihilate the Soviet Union if they send so much as one nuclear bomb. Well, you know what the Soviets said in return, right? That sounds like a good policy for us too. If you launch one at us, we'll launch 1,000 back at you. So that feeds into the whole idea of mutually assured destruction. All right, we are moving on. We got some questions now. During the Cold War, the Soviets maintained a balance of power with the U.S. by devoting vast economic resources to what? Okay, out of the following, the best option is nuclear armament. Okay, so they're trying to develop their nuclear program. Number 16. The so-called space race between the U.S. and the Soviets took on renewed urgency in 1957 whenever the Soviets launched Sputnik into space, the first man-made satellite ever in human history. Okay. In the U.S., number 17, in the U.S., rising tensions during the Cold War stimulated the space race program, the space program. That's it for this video right now.